Hello, PriceSmart. Welcome to our podcast, At the Club, a communication channel with our employees, where we will share valuable information, fascinating topics, and inspiring stories that you haven't heard before, keeping us connected on a whole new level. Join us on this journey and discover everything happening at the club. PriceSmart Inc. provides this podcast for general information. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are the personal views of the podcasters and their guests, and not the views, policies, or opinions of PriceSmart. PriceSmart makes no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. This podcast might contain forward-looking statements concerning PriceSmart's anticipated plans, revenues, and related matters. These statements are subject to risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results to differ materially, including the risks detailed in PriceSmart's most recent annual report on Form 10-K and other filings with the SEC, which are accessible on the SEC's website at www.sec.gov.
I think leadership are those two things, integrity and leading by example. The other is teaching. I'm feeling very good about the transition, and the art is putting on something that's entertainment. But to go to PriceSmart, it should be an experience. One of the keys to good management is delegation.
Yeah.
And you can't do everything. Better lives to our members, our customers, better lives for our employees, and being responsible community members.
Welcome to another episode of At the Club. I'm David Price, incoming CEO and host of the At the Club podcast. It's great to have you here today. We're in San Diego. I'm here with my dad, founder, current interim CEO, and our chairman, Robert Price. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
So it's been, I think, 9 or 10 months since we've talked. You were willing to be the guinea pig on the podcast, and since then I've recorded, I think, 9 episodes, several in Spanish, which are really hard. I'm grateful to do this in English, honestly. So it's good we're doing this one in English. So I thought, now we're coming up on almost a year of doing the podcast. It started out as a dream, as a concept to better engage with our employees, and now we've gotten good at it. We've filmed them in different countries, and now we're back here at one of our offices here in San Diego. So I thought, in the interest of picking up where we left off, we really talked about your journey, your personal journey with Price Club, FedMart Price Club, your time in Navajo part of New Mexico, and then moving into PriceSmart. And I was thinking one of the topics that we didn't really get to touch on when we spent time together the last was leadership and management. So I wanted to start there, and wanted to ask you, as an aspiring leader myself, and always working on the practice of leading teams, what are the principles and values that you think about as a leader and of a company, of a team? How do you think about leadership?
Well, it's nice to be here, David. Talk about leadership. A couple of thoughts come to mind. One is leading by example. And a leader needs to practice the highest level of integrity and of thoughtfulness, particularly about employees, to be a good leader. I think to be a good leader means to have good values. Obviously, you have to know your business, but you also have to lead by example. Another aspect of leadership that I think is very important is teaching. Actually, before I decided to be involved in business, I had thought about being a teacher and didn't take that course. But the fact is that most of my career in business has been, a lot of it at least, has been teaching people and passing on knowledge and experience so that the next generation can be effective as far as being managers or employees, whatever. But I think leadership are those two things. One is really having integrity and leading by example. The other is teaching.
I agree. Great teachers are also lifelong learners.
Correct.
Which I know you can consider yourself a lifelong learner, and you're always reading and be it usually not about business, usually about something else you're learning. So I was curious, if you think back on all your decades of experience, has there been times when these two core values or core principles of leadership have been tested, where you've really had to dig deep and where you've had to push yourself?
Oh boy, Well, from a business standpoint, I was thinking about what have been the really most challenging times in my business career, which spans 60 years now. I started working with my father in 1965, and it's now 2025. That's 60 years.
Yeah.
I would say there are 3 points in my career that have been the most challenging, and which I've learned from. One is starting Price Club. And a lot of people don't know that Price Club came very close to not being successful. We did almost everything wrong when we started Price Club. Now everybody thinks, gee, what a great idea Costco is, etc. But the fact is that it almost didn't happen. And I think something I learned from that experience is how important it is when you start a new business or a new venture to make sure that you have an understanding that anything new has to be adjusted. It's not going to work the way you thought it was going to work. And therefore, you have to be open to, and upfront thinking about the fact that once you get it out there, that you got to experiment with it and make it right, because you can do it in a laboratory, but that's not the same as doing it in real life. So I learned that early on, that most things that are new or creative have to be fine-tuned. So that was my first experience. The second experience that I'd say was challenging was selling Price Club to Costco. And that was very challenging because Price Club and Costco were fierce competitors. And the founder of Costco was someone I grew up with in the retail business. And we were almost like brothers, except he became the one who was the superior in terms of buying out our company. And getting my ego squared away after that happened, and then being able to redirect my career. I always say that if I just held on to Costco stock, financially I would have been a lot better off than I am today, but I would have missed out on all the exciting challenges that have come since then in the start of PriceSmart. The third challenge, I would say, is when PriceSmart, in about 2003, came very close to becoming bankrupt. And I had to re-engage my own day-to-day life to become CEO again. That was my second CEO at PriceSmart. At the beginning, I was the CEO. Then I gave that up, and I took it back. And then we somehow survived. And it was not easy. It was a very tough time.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
And I would say those probably are the 3 biggest challenges that I've had in my career as far as overcoming adversity. But I'm a very stubborn person, and I don't quit easily. And there will always be bumps in the road when you're in business or any other aspects of life. And the people that are survivors are the ones who don't walk away from the challenge, but figure out how to deal with the challenge.
One thing, whenever you bring up the period in the early 2000s about PriceSmart, I always think about what I was doing at that time, because I was pretty young at that time. I think I was just starting high school, and I don't think I had any idea really what was going on. So it says a lot about, your ability to manage the stress of that situation, which at the time, I didn't really think I understood the level of intensity that might have been going on.
There was a lot of intensity. And I would say, in looking at those 3 events that were such big challenges, what I had going for me, which was very important, is that in all situations, my father was there to help. And so I wasn't doing it alone. I had the best in the business as my supporter, advisor, someone who was figuring out how to get out of a problem.
But you had very different skills yourself by the time you got to PriceSmart, because you had a lot of experiences at that time, but it was a very different situation, certainly, than the other 2.
Yes, the PriceSmart experience was different. In fact, when PriceSmart started, it was never thought that it would grow to where it is today. It was actually just a opportunity for some of the Price Club people who didn't want to go to work at Costco to have an interest. And then it did develop into a very successful business. But nobody would have dreamed at that time what it would turn out to be.
Right. And then here we are today.
Yeah, exactly.
Opening at number 56 in August. So as we always talk about teaching and leading by example and tone at the top and managing by walking around, we have things that we talk about in leadership. Is there something about the culture that you built at PriceSmart, really at PriceSmart, that you're most proud of?
Today I just happened to be over at Costco on Marina Boulevard where Price Club began.
Yeah.
And I was in line to buy something, and somehow people found out who I was, and they started talking about being shoppers at Price Club. They said it'll always be Price Club for them. It's not Costco, it's Price Club. And it made me really feel good. And then I got to the check stand, and there was a cashier checking me out and he had his badge from 1988, so he knew me from before it was Costco. And
he remember you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he couldn't have been more friendly and nice, and it was just really great to reconnect. I think what I'm most proud of with both Price Club and PriceSmart are what we've done for people who've worked in our organizations. The fact that they've been well paid, they've been respected. We created a culture, almost like a family culture, where people really understood that they were valued as people and not just employees, that we thought about the whole person. And honestly, as I think about PriceSmart today, the number one area of satisfaction I have are the fact that we have 12,000 employees who really have a better life because of what we do as an employer.
Has it been hard over the years, to reinforce that way of thinking with executives and managers that you've hired? Because I think that's really the way you speak about our employees is really central to how we do business. And when you talk about integrity, that's like where the rubber meets the road, is with the customer, with the member, and with the employees, and with the suppliers. Have you found that it's been easy to teach those things, or that you've been able to, or is it really like people come to the table with those sorts of values? Can you teach those values?
Oh, I believe that you do it, but I think a lot of the teaching is by example. Any organization, I know if I walk into a restaurant, I can tell very quickly whether the people who are working in the restaurant are happy, and that reflects on the leadership in the restaurant. So if people are treated well, one thing is paying good wages, and that's fine. But the other thing is acknowledging people and telling them that they're doing a good job, making people honestly feel like they're important as people, not just as employees.
Yeah.
And I think if you do that, and managers see you do that, then you're teaching by example, and hopefully that becomes part of the culture that's passed down in the organization.
Yeah, that's so important. It's so important.
Yes.
And it needs to be consistent across all locations and at all levels. So club managers should be doing that. Buyers should be doing that with their teams. And it goes on and on.
Correct.
But it's got to be reinforced. So I'm going to switch gears here because one of the things that's happened since our last episode is that it was announced that I'm going to be the next CEO of the company. So we've been, eagerly and hard working through the transition process, and I'd say it's going well. I'm learning a lot from you, and I was before, but now with a different set of intentions. And so I wanted to ask you, how's it going? How's it going personally? How's this been for you to kind of work through this? Maybe, I guess, this is not your first time transitioning out of the CEO role, but maybe your first time with your son.
I'm feeling very good about the transition. I have the opportunity, because I worked with my father, to have some insight about what it's like for a son to have some work connection with a father. although my personality is quite different than my father's personality.
You're probably a little nicer.
A different personality, let's put it, than myself.
Sure, yeah.
And
Only 50% is all you have, Helen.
I have my mother, who's also a different personality. But I think I learned a lot that will be helpful in working with you as to what worked and didn't work.
Sure.
Working with my dad. And one of the, my dad was always the go-to person. So when I had a problem, I always had my dad to talk to, and he almost always had a good advice, let's put it that way. And so I hope that I will play that role for you in terms of, I've had a lot of experience. I'm not going away. I'm still going to be on the chair of the board and the executive chair, which gives a little more, let's call it, involvement in the business as executive board chair. So I'm not going anywhere. And I think I will be helpful in filling in some of the areas that you'll learn about, but a lot of it you'll learn from me. And I think will be a very good partnership. You have qualities that are in some areas much better than my qualities. I think in terms of your people, reaching out to people, being more involved with people, I think you're very strong in the people area. I tend to be a little more in my head as far as the analysis of things, and especially with numbers. Anybody that works with me knows that my comfort level is are numbers and playing with numbers. So I think we'll work well together as a team, and this is good years and a good future.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I'm enjoying working with you. I think we're lucky that we work well together. I know other fathers and sons. It's not uncommon for businesses to be family in some fashion, be it truly a family business or a public company with a family dynamic. It's very common. And it's not always a nice working relationship. It depends a lot on the...
Well, in Latin America...
It's very common.
Very common.
Yeah.
In the United States, to have 3 generations
lesser
involved in a public company is very unusual.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled that you want to do this and that you've come to that decision on your own. It's not because I pushed you in.
No, it's interesting, huh? Because at some point in time, I didn't want to do this.
Yes.
And then, I think coming to things on your own helps build a lot greater sense of ownership and purpose, and kind of anchored in something very grounded where I feel not only comfortable with the decision, but really excited about the opportunity. And I've expressed that to our team. So, it's what I told our team is that for me, it's personally fulfilling, deeply fulfilling for several different reasons. And I've given them 3 reasons why for me, this is important to have an opportunity to be in this role. The first, this is in no particular order, but the first that I'll say is having the opportunity to carry on our family legacy is meaningful for me. It is. And so it's important to carry on that legacy because first, it's a wonderful business model. It has integrity at its core as a value, which for me, I've always wanted to do things that impact the planet in some fashion. So what better way to do that than to have a successful business that does well while doing good? So for me, that's one. The next one is more personal, around growth and growing as a person personally. I like challenges. I've been into outdoor adventure sports and different things. Like I like the idea of a challenge where I'm growing and pushing myself to be something more than I am today. And then the last one is I like the idea of building something that has purpose. And I think it's an exciting stage for our company because we're coming up on our 30th year next year as PriceSmart. But what I told the team last week in our quarterly business review is that we're really at the beginning, even though we've been around for 30 years. I think in a way, it's just the beginning because while we've had this long track record, there's still so much more we can do that we haven't had a chance to do yet. And I like being able to be creating in that way. So those are the things I shared with the team.
I would add a little bit in my own goals.
Mm-hmm.
I've people have asked, what is your number one goal for the company? And I have said, increase in employment. Why? Because as I said earlier, the most important thing we do. You have to run a good company to have employees. If you don't run a good company, you're not going to have employees, right? It's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But to have the opportunities presented by employment, good wages, especially in our countries where there's so many challenges, is nothing could be better. So that's where I still feel, I hope the company will be able to find ways to grow, but also not only grow with more locations, but grow with different aspects of the company that would employ people so that we continue to give as many people as possible good jobs.
And we have to do that in a way that ensures our sustainable growth.
Yes.
Or otherwise, nobody has jobs.
No, it has to work for the bottom line.
That's right. No, but I like that. I think it's core to who we are. And retail is such a human capital intensive business. And even with AI and the changing nature of productivity for individuals, it's still human. I mean, we're still selling to people. Some thought leaders have been talking about, it's bots selling to bots that are agents for people. But at the end of the day, I mean, consumption is not only utility, it's also entertainment. And part of what I think we do is an experience around the treasure hunt, the experience in the warehouse, demos, and most importantly, not only that people find things that they want, but find the thing that they didn't know that they wanted.
And I want to give you another part of, because I am somewhat of a student of merchandising history.
I should say so, yeah.
So I always think about in Jerusalem, they did excavation from the Roman times.
Okay.
And the main street going through Jerusalem at the time of the Romans was called the Cardo.
Okay.
Which is the root for cardiology, heart. So the Cardo was the heart of the city.
Okay.
And when they excavated, the archaeologists found remnants of stores, and they all had these wonderful locations right on the Cardo.
Main.
Yeah. And when you think about the experience, I think about merchandising is much more than just a science. There's an art to merchandising. And the art is putting on something that's entertainment. So people should come into our PriceSmarts as they do to Costco, as they did to Price Club, with the idea they're not utilitarian. When you go to the grocery store, you have a list, and you make your list, and you go home. But to go to PriceSmart, it should be an experience. And that experience is multifaceted, whether it's the food court or whether it's the new item you didn't expect to, or the crowd and you're feeling excited because you're with a bunch of other people. We're putting on a show.
The demos.
So we really have to be good at putting on that show, because even with the internet and shopping at home, people are still going to want to go out. They go to malls, they go to different places because
they want to be with other people.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a form of entertainment. And we've got to be good entertainers.
I agree. It's interesting. I think the club model, I know we're I had other questions, but I like where we're going. I think the club model is interesting because there's some aspects of the club model that remind me a lot of what today people call specialty retail. Take Williams-Sonoma as an example. Williams-Sonoma, I would venture, I don't know how many SKUs they have, but I would guess that they have a lot less SKUs than Walmart, for sure. And every single SKU, they have great buyers, and they look at the item. They really make sure it's the right item, the right quality. They give a bunch of information about the item. They're specialists. And we're kind of like that, only we're not just in cookware and houseware. We're in a bunch of categories. We don't go so deep in every category. But I think that highly curated, differentiated product mix is very much like what we do. And when you go to a Williams-Sonoma store, it's fun to go in. I mean, it's really well merchandised. They're in great locations, and it's fun to go in. You may not even buy, they hope you buy something. We hope you buy something when you come to PriceSmart. But you may not go in with purchase intent, and you may come out with something that you found that you're like, wow, I really like that. And I think that's kind of what we try to do in the club.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of pull us back. On the CEO, I wanted to ask you some personal advice. So what are the qualities or aspects of being a CEO that you look for, that you've thought about as you've been in this role several times? What makes a good CEO?
There are a number of things. I'm not sure I can totally answer that question, but first of all, having a very good team that you've either inherited or you've created that can do a lot of the work that you're never going to be able to do, because one of the keys to good management is delegation.
Yeah.
And you can't do everything. So you've got to have good people.
That's right.
Who are working for you. I think knowing the business, you've got to understand, we're in the merchandising business, understanding products, vendors, how products get to where they're, and what works, the 6 rights, all of that. I think having the capacity to think out of the box and to challenge your own assumptions. I've kind of, maybe it's because of how I grew up with my father, but even things I've created myself, I'm not afraid to say, are they really right anymore? And so the basics of the club business, I think, are right. But there are a lot of things. For instance, we recently began to take down steel. When we started in 50 years ago, steel racks were absolutely identifiable as you went in, that's what you saw, steel racks. But we, for a variety of reasons, said maybe that's not the best thing for us in the way it was done before. So I think you have to be willing to even take what you think are your best ideas and be self-critical. I think that's very important. And the other thing about being the CEO is to make hard calls. And I think I use my dad as an example. If a product or a vendor wasn't upholding the value proposition that we wanted, even if it was Coca-Cola, my father was never afraid to throw them out. And I know Jim Sinegal was like that. I'm not sure I was quite as brave as the two of them. But if you really want to communicate your values and the fact that you're not going to be pushed over, you have to be able to take things on that you may be a little afraid of, but you can't be pushed around.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes tricky, because sometimes it's easier to take the course of least resistance, and you know when to pick your fights, but you got to stand up for things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one thing I've noticed, without oversharing, but I think the organization sometimes wants to do one thing, and the CEO often has to say, hey, this is not the thing that we need to do. And I think that tension between the CEO and the organizational inertia is like a real thing that the CEO has to contend with.
Another thing, I guess, on a CEO is that you're dealing with so many different pieces to the business. You're dealing with construction, you're dealing with property acquisition, you're dealing with finance, you're dealing with acquisition of product, you're dealing with distribution of product. You have all of these things.
People.
Not only that, but you have to understand all those things, because it's like running a restaurant. You got to understand every aspect there better than anybody's working for you, but you still have to have people that are good doing the work.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you're gonna have problems. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a big job.
Yeah, big job.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So if you had to pick one thing, most important thing for your successor to focus on, is there one thing? Is there not any one thing?
I think it's hard to say one thing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you some advice I'll give you.
Okay.
And I think this would apply to everybody that works for you, because again, you're setting the example. And this is something I was very, very strong on in my career. And that is, never let your work take you away from your family or taking care of yourself. I think that advice, whether you're CEO or in any job, I've seen too many situations where people got divorced, or where they they didn't stay healthy because they didn't exercise and take care of themselves. And if you're not right in terms of your family and your personal health, you're not going to do well at your job.
I think that's good advice. Very, very good advice. And you've set an example. I mean, going back to what I said earlier, in 2003, I didn't even know really what was going on with PriceSmart at that time.
Just keep your priorities in mind. And again, that's example. If you as CEO are valuing those things, that will be communicated to those who work for you. It's important you take care of your health. It's important that you're good to your family.
Absolutely.
And, we're not asking you to do things that make your life, are self-destructive.
No. One thing I really love about the way we kind of think as a business and as a group and as leaders is that it's a marathon. So this, we think in the long term. And I think, in consideration of topics like family, health, balance, you can't always balance every moment. There's going to be sprints and there's going to be moments where you have to go hard, but making sure that you put back the time to get things back into equilibrium, because we're playing the long game. And I think that's an important message for our employees, but also for our investors,
right,
in terms of how we think about this company.
Yep.
So have you thought much about, I think the way you've approached your time as CEO this time, which is the only time we work together, you've done a good job of not getting overly involved in details that don't matter. You've really been able to focus on the right things in terms of the day-to-day. Do you see any change kind of going into your executive chairmanship? Do you have kind of thoughts about transitioning out of day-to-day management?
Well, there is a shift. I think probably the most important rethinking I'm going to do is how I can be most supportive of you, and particularly in the areas that, because of the many years of experience I've had in merchandising, but also because of my orientation to numbers and to real estate and to financial planning. I'd say those are things that take some years you can't learn them in a business school. You have to learn them through experience.
Yep.
And I think being able to mentor you and to help you develop those skills. Running a business is a lot about strategy, financial strategy. And in our company, it's a lot about real estate.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah. Well, looking forward to continuing to work with you on those things. So what gives you confidence about our leadership team?
Oh, I think we have a great team. I think we've always had a long suit. Our strength, even back to FedMart days, was always in the operations of the business. I'd say we've been very, very successful in being good operators, running our clubs well and running our stores well and all of that. But our basic philosophy is good. All we have to do is keep implementing it right. And we have to get caught up in technology. We know that we've not been investing properly at technology. And I think, in a way, that's an opportunity. It's hard to get caught up and it costs money, but we're doing as well as we're doing without being as up to date in technology. I think we'll even do better once we get more up to date.
Yeah. And I'd say, for our listeners, both internal and external, you've mentioned it several times on earnings calls and in our releases. Right now, we're in a period of focus on that. So we have Relax, we have our new point of sale, and other initiatives that are transforming and modernizing really our processes more than anything else. And what I've told the team and the message I've had for them is, at the core, if you don't have the right data, none of these systems work. So we're doing a lot of work around updating how we generate member data, transaction data, employee data, and making sure we have all the fuel to drive this improvement in system and process. So we're getting there, and it's a heavy focus for the team. And it's amazing, at the meeting last week with our executive team, we were here in this room where we're filming right now. And I had John Hildebrandt, who's been with the company 45 years, saying, how are we going to use AI to solve this problem? I swear to God, he's the one that said it. And John Wang, our fellow that runs digital now, he had a funny look on his face, and Hildebrandt goes, John, did I say something wrong? And John Wayne goes, no, I just can't believe that you just said that. So we're making a lot of progress in terms of the way that our leadership team is thinking about leveraging technology to just do what we do a whole lot better. So it was amazing to hear John Hildebrandt say that. So I want to be thoughtful about time because I know you don't have a lot of time today. So thinking kind of as we're kind of closing our discussion, when you think about legacy, the legacy of PriceSmart, what do you hope that we will carry forward in this business?
Well, I hope that we can carry forward the legacy that was started by my father at FedMart in 1954, which is the idea that we're bringing better lives to our members, our customers, better lives for our employees, and being responsible community members. I mean, that really is the legacy. And, just thinking about the community and our employees, which I always come back to the employees. We have a foundation, our Price Philanthropies Foundation. We do a lot of good. And as much good as we do in that foundation, to me, it doesn't compare to what we have done as employers. I think that's the greatest good we've ever done is as employers. So the legacy is run the business well, continue to treat people well, both our employees and our members. That's the legacy. I mean, that's what it is.
And that's why I want to do this job.
Okay.
I mean, for me, there's like no greater reason, to have a meaningful professional pursuit than to get to pursue something that you're doing well for the people that work for you, doing well for the people that shop with you, and then, you do right for those folks and they take care of your investors. And that's the way we think about it. So do you have any message as we close, the message you'd like to share with our leadership team and our employee team?
Well, the message would be thank you for this company is not an easy company. Just traveling and dealing with 12 or 13 countries and all the different complications. And I think we do it better than anybody else. So thanks to the team and the people that dedicated themselves, and people like John Hildebrandt and others who have spent a good part of their lives, sacrificing in some ways their lives to make sure that things are taken care of.
That's for sure. No, it's not an easy business. And it's from the folks that are working at the cash register all the way up. I mean,
or at the bakery,
or inventory control, or in a warehouse or distribution centers. It's a lot of work.
It is.
Retail's a lot of work, but it can be a lot of fun too.
Right.
All right. Well,
okay.
To our audience, thanks so much again for joining us at another episode of At the Club. Been a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Dad. Thank you. And we'll see you next time. And don't forget to comment, write us at the podcast. We love to hear from you and love to hear about what you'd like to learn about next. Take care. We'll see you next time at the club.